Good morning, welcome to CATEX-TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. This is a live broadcast from Princeton, New Jersey. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2011. It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., 4:30 p.m. in London, 10:30 a.m. in Mexico City. If you need to reach us during the broadcast, you can phone in toll-free at 1-866-67-CATEX. Overseas, our AOL instant mail address is CATEX-TV. A couple of notes. The European Central Bank indicated that the time for static interest rates may be ending. They signaled that inflation is rising in Europe fast enough that they're going to consider raising the interest rates. Also, U.S. productivity for the fourth quarter of last year jumped 2.6%. We'll have the U.S. unemployment numbers right after the break. We'll go to our main news. Well, as we estimated the other day when Swiss Re came out with their loss estimate from the most recent New Zealand quake of $800 million, the upper range of their possible damage estimates in New Zealand were much, much higher than what other people have been forecasting. Heightened fears now are running through the reinsurance market that the disaster could become the costliest non-U.S. catastrophe event on record. The scale of the Swiss Re estimate means that its catastrophe budget for the year is probably going to have been exceeded just in the first quarter alone. Seems to have caught the industry by surprise. The loss dwarfs the expectation of the Credit Suisse analyst team at Jefferies International, which had thought that Swiss Re would only see a $230 million hit, not an $800 million plus. The Jefferies estimate was based on an industry loss of $4 to $5 billion for the event. Swiss Re's announcement yesterday said that the industry loss could be between $6 billion and $12 billion. The high Swiss Re loss now increases the spotlight on other major reinsurers, particularly Munich Re. Jefferies said that Munich Re would likely absorb twice the size of the hit that Swiss Re would get. In this case, that would be about $1.6 billion. Swiss Re said that its $800 million estimate was net of retrocession and before tax. This exceeds the $630 million estimated loss Swiss Re suffered as a result of last year's Chilean quake. The Chilean quake was at the time the costliest non-U.S. cat event on record for the industry. Back in New Zealand, the government said that restrictions are still imposed on the area where the quake hit. They said that residents and business owners can expect to start hearing from authorities within the next 48 hours as to when they can go back to their homes and businesses. The confirmed number of fatalities as of today is 159. 240 people remain missing. The government continues to warn that aftershocks could lead to further building collapses. There's some interesting news from Nove Group in London. They booked a 105% increase in underlying pre-tax profits, all the way up to about £36 million for 2010. Its combined ratio actually improved. It went down 7.8 percentage points, down to about 91 and change. The Lloyd's syndicate also announced that it would look to move offshore when its tax credits from previous losses are exhausted. This is according to its chairman, John Hastings Bass. Mr. Bass said that it's with a heavy heart that we face the likelihood of following our peer group in the creation of some sort of offshore structure. He said it's a great disappointment that successive governments have not seen fit to address the needs of Lloyd's syndicates and have done nothing to encourage the maintenance of a UK domicile in a genuinely international and mobile industry. Mr. Bass also went on to talk a little bit about the current issue du jour, the influence and dependence on the mega brokers. He said that Nove would limit its dependence on mega brokers. He said that Nove is aiming to reduce its dependence on large brokers over the medium term. One of the risks, he said, facing Nove and other Lloyd's businesses is an overdependence on a small number of large brokers. He said at the same time, alternative business producers can have an important role to play in geographic diversification away from the traditional British-American focus. Building and maintaining a growing range of providers mitigates our dependence on a small number of brokers, and that's part of our strategy. He said that Nove sees 41% of its GWP coming from the three largest brokers. That was last year. In 2009, it was 37%. He went on then to say that other big brokers such as JLT and Miller account for a significant amount of group production. He estimated that the big three control about 50% of the non-life market. That, of course, comes from the chairman of Nove, and it follows on the heels of yesterday's comments from the JLT CEO, Dominic Burke, in which he said that the market has an unhealthy dependence on the big three. Now, it's coming from all sides now. Hardee's came out with some news. They've seen a 45% drop in profit on cat losses. Their profit was about 9.6 million pounds for 2010, down from 17.5 million pounds it made in 2009. Profit before tax halved to 10 million pounds from 20 million pounds. The ratio jumped up all the way to 94.7% from 78%. Barbara Murray, the CEO, said that Hardee's had been hit harder than a typical Lloyd's business by the natural cats in 2010. She said it's because the company's property treaty reinsurance book is more internationally focused than traditional Lloyd's players. She also announced that underwriting director Adrian Walker has decided to retire. He's going to leave on May 17th. We wish him the best. Excuse me. Meanwhile, with all this talk about how dangerous a place it is to write in Australia, Tokio Millennium didn't seem to get the message. They've just been approved to go to Australia, as the Brits call it Oz. The Australian Prudential Regulation Authority has authorized Tokio Millennium's Australian branch to write insurance business in the country. Tokio Millennium Re Australia is based in Sydney. It's been capitalized with $80 million US of assets. The branch is going to produce P&C treaty opportunities coming from Asia and New Zealand for Tokio Millennium in Bermuda to write. All Australian business underwritten by Tokio Millennium will be bound in Australia by Tokio Millennium Re of Australia. Here's an interesting update. Goss Reinsurance, which has sort of been called E.W. Blanche 3, if you looked at Benfield as number 2, is going to change its name. Goss has Ian Packer and Scott Brock in there. It also had Ted Blanche for a while. They're a privately owned reinsurance broker headquartered in Dallas. They've changed their name to Advocate Reinsurance Partners. The company says that the name change was issued because the partners believe Advocate Reinsurance Partners better describes their mission. They remain a key holding of the parent company U.S. Risk Insurance Group. They've also moved their offices to uptown Dallas. The stock market in New York is having a real good day. It's up about 167 points. We'll go to a word from our sponsors.
Design for peace.
Well, here's great news. This is sure to solve the problem in Libya. Look at these two. Hugo Chavez from Venezuela and Muammar Gaddafi from Libya. Of course, we know that the two know each other. They visited each other in their respective capitals of Tripoli and Caracas several times, and they exchanged tweets with each other. Well, Mr. Gaddafi has accepted an offer from Mr. Chavez to mediate in Libya's political crisis. I'm sure that's going to be a very productive outcome. Sources are telling Al Jazeera that the Venezuelan foreign minister has discussed the offer with the Arab League, and it could be announced as early as today at an Arab League meeting in Cairo. Meanwhile, back in Libya, Libyan military jets loyal to Mr. Gaddafi have bombed twice today the town of Benghazi, and the British and French are now saying that unless this stops, they will impose unilaterally, acting on behalf of both of them, a no-fly zone. The American Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, said that a no-fly zone can easily be implemented. However, no one should be under any illusions. The very first step of the no-fly zone would be an immediate attack on Libyan anti-aircraft missile sites and defense sites. After that, the no-fly zone would be implemented. In the United States, the number of people requesting unemployment benefits last week dropped to a 3-year low. Applications for benefits fell by 20,000 to a seasonally adjusted 368,000. The third decline in the last 4 weeks. Applications are now at their lowest level since May of '08. Economists say that applications that remain consistently below 375,000 tend to signal declines in the unemployment rate. At the peak of the recession, application for benefits had gone up to 651,000. Well, the unrest in the Middle East has been having some corresponding effects worldwide. Possibly some commentators or pundits would say that that's what's happening in Madison, Wisconsin. Who knows? But it certainly has caused a stir in Beijing. Chinese police are intensifying pressure on foreign reporters, warning them to stay away from spots that have been designated over the internet for Middle East-inspired protests. They threatened them with expulsion or the revocation of their credentials. The government warnings show how unnerved the authorities are by online calls for protests every Sunday. The appeals began 2 weeks ago. They've attracted few demonstrators, but many Chinese onlookers, as well as loads of journalists and an exponential number of police. Staff from the Associated Press and the Agence France-Presse said that they were called in for videotape meetings with Beijing police today and yesterday, and were told that reporters trying to film or interview near the demonstration spots could be punished. The Foreign Correspondents Club of China said in a statement that some journalists reported being accused by police, quote, of trying to stir up a revolution, disrupt harmony in China, and simply cause trouble. The warnings ratcheted up notices from police earlier this week that put a section of a downtown shopping street in Beijing, as well as People's Square in Shanghai, off limits for foreign media. One British journalist said that her team was told that it was not allowed to film anywhere in China without prior approval. Well, the space shuttle is up. Actually, the Space Shuttle Discovery, I believe it is up on its last flight. It's supposed to be coming down on Sunday, I believe. Usually they try to schedule these flights to land at the Kennedy Space Center on the east coast of Florida. We may have a problem with that. Crews in Florida are fighting the first significant wildfire of the year, which is approximately 25 miles north of the Kennedy Space Center. The blaze has burned about 16,000 acres or 25 square miles. Officials are saying that the fire is only about 25% contained. NASA is saying that operations at the space agency have not yet been affected. Our friend Neil Curry in Bermuda at RenRe is making some moves. The Royal Gazette is reporting that the board of RenRe last night adopted a prearranged stock trading plan, permitting Mr. Curry to sell up to 150,000 of his RenRe shares to diversify his portfolio and facilitate income tax plannings. Mr. Curry will still have a significant stake in the company, even if he sells all the 150,000 shares. The shares would yield about $9.9 million by yesterday's closing price. Mr. Curry's a good man, and we wish him well. Well, our final story, we just picked this one up last night, actually. It was oddly titled. it looked when one read the headline that this might be a solution to global warming. And it pretty much goes like this. Of course, during the Cold War, the Soviet-American confrontation for 40 years, fear of a protracted nuclear exchange between the two countries was predicted to cause a nuclear winter. Huge chunks of ash were going to inundate the skies, block out the sun for months and months. Much of humanity would eventually die of starvation and disease. However, since the likelihood of a gigantic nuclear war is remote these days, researchers have begun to focus on smaller, more contained nuclear wars. To see what climate effects such a regional nuclear conflict would have, scientists from NASA modeled the war involving 100 Hiroshima-level bombs. Those are pretty significant. I've been to Hiroshima. It's actually, the specter of 100 of them is just appalling. Each bomb would pack the equivalent of 15,000 tons of TNT. The research concluded that the resulting fires would kick up about 5 million metric tons of black carbon. In the NASA climate models, this carbon then absorbed solar heat, and it also caused cooling. The cooling, in fact, after a regional nuclear war, would drop temperatures worldwide on average by about 2¼ degrees Fahrenheit for up to 3 years afterwards. In the extreme areas, such as the tropics or the Arctic, differences would cool by 5.4 degrees. Part of the Arctic and Antarctica would actually warm up a bit due to shifted wind and ocean circulation patterns. After 10 years, the average global temperature would still be 1 degree Fahrenheit lower than before the nuclear war. The main message from our work, said the head researcher, would be that even a regional nuclear conflict would have global consequences. Well, we were drawn to it because the headline indicated that this might be some sort of a solution for global warming, but upon reading the article, we realized that it was a horror. Let us hope that this man does not read English language productions on Google and elsewhere. And let us hope he does not bow to humanitarian pressures and try to, in fact, engage in a limited nuclear war to save mankind from global warming. It's a terrible problem enough as it is. If we have any other breaking news, I'll come back and tell you. In the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow, and thank you for watching.